All right, let's get today started. What are we going to talk about today? Well, today I'm producing live from TikTok and Clubhouse, YouTube, all those great places. We're going to talk about social strategies, networking, all that great stuff. We hear lots of pieces of advice, but are we really being able to apply advices in whatever atmosphere you're going to get your advice? I have heard some amazing speakers. I have heard people that are just kind of like dead ends. And I've heard, a lot of different people tell me exactly how to achieve, let me turn this down, how to achieve the next best for your podcast, for your YouTube. I mean, there are a number of people out there constantly talking about exactly how you can get your presence out there, get your brand exposure, all that great stuff. And what I really want to hit is that, there's only been a certain few influencers out there, speakers who I feel that they know exactly what they're talking about because after going through, I would say 9 years of floundering in social media strategies, trying to figure out what was my niche, trying to figure out what is in my brand, all that great stuff. I wanted to know exactly what was going to be the best thing for me. Right. And I've gone to events, I've gone to see speakers. There's so many different ways and people who can talk and resonate with like, hey, what's going to get you the next level? What's going to get you paid? There is a movement out there that, hey, you can go and film and get paid just based on your knowledge, or you can get paid for your ideas. Why not? I think that's a great idea, right? But it's not so easy as you think. And you're going to come across a lot of different notions, thinking that what you got to say is important enough for people to tune in. That's why this show today is called Sound Off, Tune In. It's a brand new podcast, YouTube experience that I'm brand developing right now. But we're gonna, before we really get the pillars of the brand up, once a month on Sundays, I'm gonna come on and I'm gonna talk about, you know, all kinds of different things on Sound Off, Tune In. But for today, we're gonna talk about um, the things that lead you somewhere as opposed to nowhere and some of the advices. So whenever you want to get out and you're starting brand new, you don't know anybody, nobody knows who you are. One of the first things for you to get noticed or for people really to see who you are, try to get on somebody's podcast. And I thought that was when I first heard that suggestion of getting onto somebody's podcast or YouTube, it made sense, but there was one major factor that I felt was missing in that advice. And I was listening to a content creator recently I came across on TikTok, and his name's Brad Powell. And he created a short, I would have probably say maybe 2 minute or 90 second, I'm not really sure, piece of advice. And he talked about certain things in networking. And what he said I felt in the long run made a lot of sense, right? So, how can we ignore what makes sense? And his episode, I can't remember the exact day, but he talked about that piece of advice, indirectly, like getting your content seen, getting your brand known is getting in front of an audience that where they could relate to you. So here's the keys about that. Remember what I said? You want to get onto shows or in front of people, you want to be interviewed so people can see you. You're going to use the experience of somebody exactly from where they're at, a bigger audience than you, or maybe has. They're known, they've established. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's on the use and it's on the premise of exchanging your experience, your life experience, maybe your profession, whatever it may be. It may be something that you guys just agree on. And it's very important that you know exactly who, what, and why, right? So when you're developing your brand and you want to be that speaker, you want to be that person that makes impressions for content creation, whether it's, do it yourself at home to mowing lawns, auto mechanics. What about life advice? There's all kinds of different niches that you may want to talk about. And then when someone asks you, or whatever that was, whenever someone asks you, hey, what's your niche? And there's that dumbfound look like, oh, let me come up with a quick reaction, right? Let me come up with something that that I didn't really take time to think about. And when you look at what's taking place for oh, hey Mary, good to see you. When you're looking to really nail down things and you don't know what a niche is, well, here's what a niche. It's a specific area and interest that you're going to talk about. Let's let's call it for what it is. And when you don't know anybody and nobody knows who you are, you want to build something that people relate to, right? Now, it's okay not to necessarily know right off the bat, but there's an idea. But I'm going to add some caution. And when caution comes, it means take it for what it is, think about it, write about it, make it happen for yourself over time. Bring down a writing process, right? It's very important that as you develop where you want to speak on, what you want to speak on, and why, the pillars that you're going to provide, you've got to understand that this is what people are coming for. They're not coming for you just to know, oh, well, you seem cute or you're cool. Maybe that works for some. And there is that atmosphere of people who go on and all they do is, and I've seen it plenty time and time again, people who go on and they look cute, they seem interesting, but they could be dumb as rocks. I'm just going to say it for what it is. You're going there to be a voyeur. And um and then there's things that are just really odd. I've seen content creators who are like literally just trying to piss you off. I've seen, and why do I call them content creators? Because people are attending, they're trying to find something to be interested in, entertained, however, or they want to get in a drama. So, but the big area that I really want to touch on is self-mastery, self-improvement, um, self-help. These areas, there's a lot of people who want to give advice, and they feel like once they've been kind of informed, they really want to resonate with people. They learn something, they want to develop, they want to teach as they go. But that's really the cautionary thing. So the best way to get your content out there, find your niche, what exactly you want to talk about. If you want to talk about self-help and things like that, I'll give you a beautiful example. One example that I really like, there's a podcast called The Aftermath. Why? This is kind of self-help in a way. I like The Aftermath because it talks about parents who go through parental alienation. What is that? That's where it doesn't matter how it took place. It doesn't matter whether you're wrong or right. It's a podcast for parents who have lost connection with their children while under the age of 18, right? That's primarily the focus. They lost custody. The kids turned against them. People resonate with that. There's a lot of people. It's kind of like it's not talked about enough, but just to give you a synopsis, that's a focus area, right? And that is a focus to get you to do better. And people want to get behind when they're going through hurt, they want to resonate. So when I first came across The Aftermath, I really resonated with the speaker right away. They don't see their kids. There's plenty of things that talk about them. So that's kind of like a niche area. Exactly. That's really something that, hold on, I need to share with enough people so we get out there. All right. Anyways, but when that's a niche area, and that is a self-help, self-mastery, and it is under learning. So people relate to that. But if you go and say, well, hey, I'm a life coach. Okay. Thank you. What exactly is it about your life coaching that relates to an experience that gets people to do better things. It's not just because you took a certified course. It's actually there's a body of proof that people get behind saying, "Hey, see me? This is what I look at." Which brings up the very, very first point that when we're using social media and branding, know that your brand represents you. You are the brand at all times. Doesn't matter where you go, what you do. What matters is like, hey, people want to get behind you if you're interesting. And that means you got to know kind of like the format. And I wrote this down. There was a speaker that I came across not too long ago on Instagram, and I really felt related to the way that he laid things out, right? And he says, know the difference between branding and marketing. Branding, right? Let's look at branding, is basically why, right? Why people are here, why people are interested in that you're under a scope or a body of topics and issues that it's going to relate to people, right? Now, marketing is goes into the tier of branding, but marketing is the how. For example, I go and tell you, hey, here's 3 tips how you can avoid parental alienation. I'm giving you exactly the format. I'm telling you exactly what it is really quick because you only have a certain amount of time to get people's attention and exit that attention that or where their attention exits. So you got to know that like, look, this is not it's chess moves, it's strategy, it's relatability. And if you're not relatable, people will not stay. Let's face it, the real truth is many of your friends will not stay to watch your stuff. Why? Because they already know you. I'm not trying to be mean or nothing, but the reality is that people get behind you as a stranger. They're getting to know you, what you speak on, what you relate to, what you get down, what you throw down is like, yeah, I like what that says. So if I tell you, like, as the example, 3 tips to avoid parental alienation, you're going to get people's attention. There are people in pain, right? And when people look for that topic, here you come up. So you're now relatable, right? So why that I said earlier, branding and marketing, they're 2 different things. One is an instrument of another, but yet the other is the parent of that instrument, right? So marketing is the how. It's what gets you out there. But what I also noticed, going back to some of my other points, what gets social media out there and gets people you in front of those people when you don't know anybody and you want to talk about a certain thing and say like you're kind of interested in an area, you're figuring out the niche, is the labels of your show, right? The label of your show and what is the keywords in your algorithm, right? What are the keywords of why people are here to attend? And when you can't figure that out, people are not looking for you. They'll come across you, like literally be here for 8 to 10 seconds, and then they're gone. Poof. Proven point. Watch yourself. If you're on Instagram or TikTok or any social media, watch yourself of how fast you hear something within 5 seconds and how fast you tune out. So observe yourself, right? You're going to notice exactly. So when you don't have anybody who knows you, you don't have anybody that really relates to you yet, you're a nobody. You are somebody individually. Yes, I granted. Let's really get down with that. But what I'll tell you is that from nobody to somebody to where people notice you, it's because they are literally paying attention to what you're throwing down. It interests them. People are selfish. It's okay to be selfish, right? Sorry, it's not always kumbaya. But I'm going to tell you right now, like, invite people to be interested in you that interest them, right? And it goes to my life quote, and I say this over and over and over. Nobody is self-made. You do have a self-interest, but you are community built. You don't get anywhere significant without using people and their resources and you being used to them. You're exchanging. And when you get this, you've defeated half the battle. Now, why I found Brad Powell's piece of advice on TikTok, and I really like what he said, when it goes to like, hey, go get interviewed on podcasts. And what he's really saying that's not being said is you're using a network of somebody else for exposure, right? So, one of the things I wrote down, and write a notebook of your social strategy, or you're going to develop a social strategy notebook. You're going to get educated and informed. You're going to look at exactly what works. There is plenty of tips and things that work and don't work in podcasts, YouTubes, videos, blogs, whatever. There's a lot of things that people know, but they don't execute on. I know, I've been through a lot of them. And you got to be willing to kind of like be the mad scientist in the lab. That's what Sound Off Tune In is really for. You're being the scientist really that people can get behind. It's very important to know that, and don't be afraid to fail, because the more that you try to take someone's advice and put it in, and you may not know how, say, like the social media platform works, then, there's nothing wrong. There's times where I've made live broadcasts where it goes nowhere, like nobody's listening. Maybe not today. But for the sake of, you know, where I'm live on TikTok and Clubhouse and YouTube and even Facebook and X. I've invested in my equipment to be able to get my brand exposure, right? And that when I have the website and all these things and all those great things to really get me out there, it's all a part of the framework of, let's imagine you as the house. You're going to a blueprint and you understand each platform has a specific purpose. What I love about TikTok is that it gets you in front of so many people, a brand new network of people. You can be more famous than even as most celebrities. Like, I don't follow celebrities in most of my social media, so that's fine, right? But getting back to what Brad was saying, he was like, networking for your brand exposure. And I'll talk more about brand exposure. I'm going to be releasing some shorts coming up. I had a brand meeting with uh, an individual, creative individual, Brandon Wilson, who is the developer working with me. He was like, look, we've got to lay out the brand. What is it going to do? What we're here for? And see, I've already gone through 9 years I made it kind of like a cluttered mess. But once I really started doing it and started understanding what could be done, you know, then I began to understand, like, now I get it, where I can go, right? Think about that. Where can you go with a brand? You can go lots of places. You can do lots of things. And that's why the content creators, they say, like, hey, you can be you can be TikTok famous or Instagram famous. You can be making content for so many things in so many different places and then get paid for it. People are interested in who you are. You maybe have that charisma. But Brad Powell, like I said, I'm getting back to it. I'm circling back to my point. He says, when nobody knows you, you've got to get in front of people. Yes. But he's specific. So, number one, he said, create a limited podcast and series with about 6 to 8 people, maybe individual, sometimes group. And they're in front of larger audiences. They're in front of people who are already interesting, but know that what they're interested in, right? Know the difference, that when you network and you go into someone's podcast or YouTube or whatever, they have a specific area that they attract people in. So make sure that you can align with them. And then that way you can really make a bigger difference for who you are. And people ask, so what's your show about? Well, for example, I'll use man-to-man voices and stories that, or my Stoic Circus and Sound Off Tuning. Those are 3 of my brand projects that I am developing. I'm working on. I invite someone man-to-man voices and stories. I'm here to talk specifically to men primarily. And yes, I want ladies to come in. It Man to man is about the unspoken stories and accomplishments that men relate to. so that they're supported. It's not me here and telling you how to be a macho badass. It's really how to get your needs met and your voices aligned with what gets in action and done for you. Why do I talk about that specifically? Because I've had a lot of experience exactly of how to screw up, but also how to change your life, right? So I focus on that. I focus exactly on exactly what men are going to help men develop. So that's I'm going to find people to interview, and then I'm also curious to be interviewed, right? I'm going to write people specifically and saying, "Hey, I like your show. I have something to add, something you talked about." Write them. Network, get out there. So he's so Brad Powell basically says, create a limited podcast or creative work, right? To go live with you or you with them. You're going to be addition because there's nothing worse than not being interested, but there's nothing but a plus when people are interested because you say something, you do something that maybe they overlook. Maybe it's common sense you haven't taken advantage of, but whatever the case may be, you're relating to people, right? So he says, choose people who have an audience that you would like to get in front of. Because when you don't, nobody knows who you, then it really comes down to, okay, I'm going to get in front of a place where exposure exists, not where I'm just going to make a social media podcast and just toss it out there, tossing bait out into people, and it goes nowhere, right? So you got to know exactly who you're going to get in front of, why, and get it down. And this will, as Brad Powell would say, it will skyrocket your brand or business. Now, the keys are to get them to share your stream, the live stream about you and your brand or your posts, right? Because when you go streaming, there are a lot of people who don't, if you don't have a strong following and say like you're trying to get a following, you want to get in front of people who can like, yeah, I like that thing that he talked about. That's something I really resonate with, right? And when you really resonate with people, you know, it makes a difference. When you resonate with somebody, you also give yourself a chance to ruminate with people. That means they want to check you out and they want to keep coming back for more. It's a fact. You got to understand right now, you've got to get people in a mindset of being hooked, right? So get somebody to share their live stream experience about you and anyone else that you can come across, right? Let's see. This. Okay. And like I'm doing right now, I'm inviting people on my live stream in the different platforms that I'm on. Why? Because I want to encourage that live talk. So getting back to what I really found the lesson of the day and a strategy is understanding that do you get people hooked on what you're saying? That's a fact. If you can't get them hooked on what you're saying, you got work to do. You don't have to be the best speaker. You don't have to be the most amazing individual. You just have to be relatable. And there are a great many of books out there to help you with those strategies and the topics and the issues that you relate to people. And what I liked about a particular writer, I do want to promote this because this guy is definitely on my bucket list. There is I've been reading two books, but when it comes to social media or even business, I felt that Near Ale with Ryan Hoover, who wrote Hooked. That's right, the book Hooked. You can see it right now if you're on YouTube. Hooked. He talks about the external triggers to get you traction. Because if you don't have traction, you have distraction, and people, that's where they tune out. There's a boom. So to going into Brad's advice, he's like, you're getting in front of people that are interested in you for whatever reason, and you are interesting. You have an interesting way of thinking, being, and doing. Let's So like I said, so get them to share the stream. And then after you go live with somebody on a limited scope and series, when you go live with these people, they're going to share you on their social media platforms, right? That's the other thing. And I just want a quick shout out. Thank you for all those guests who are coming and looking. Hey, Elizabeth and Nieto, good to see you, as well as Sharita. Hey, definitely. And why am I doing that? Because I would like to look over and see who's coming from where. And there's, people that are watching. So if you're on YouTube or TikTok, this is a brief moment, just a space filler. Hey, if you're watching me on any platform, say hi. Appreciate you. And share the stream. I love for you to see what your feedback is. Anyways, getting back to it. So Near AL talks about in Hooked, can you get people and triggered in whatever platform or area that you're going to be talking in, right? Get people interested, because once you say something that gets somebody to be like curious, it's kind of like, I would have to give the creator that I like his phrase. It's the punch in the mouth attention. I hate to say it that way. It sounds mean, really, but that is because it's so quick. It's like, wait, what did you just say? Those things that you react to, anything that from the exterior, whether it's a live stream, a social media post, a piece of casual conversation, people are going to get behind what was there that triggered their attention. But it's very interesting about how far it really goes. You can interest them for literally 8 seconds in or 5 seconds, and they'll be, you're boring. You got to get over yourself. You got to be willing to be that mad scientist in the lab and willing to talk and deliver wherever you can, right? So that's the big deal. So what Near Ale talks about, and he's talking about selling things, get people to react externally to internal, their reasons for being there. And when you read Hooked, he kind of gives you the psychology of relatability and get people to act, right? It's very important. If they're not acting, what are you doing? Right. And you can't, you just have to stay on that. So, I wrote some things down. What are external triggers? And just a quote out of his book, he says external triggers are embedded with our information, which tells the user what to do next. Right. So, what are examples of external triggers? Or internal triggers, so I hate keep saying, internal triggers are when the product becomes tightly coupled with the thought and emotion of pre-existing routine. It leverages an internal trigger, unlike external triggers. See, external triggers are based on habit forming, just like your attendance on social media. Can you go a day without being hooked up to social media or TikTok or Instagram? A lot of people love it. They're interested. It's a space filler. It's a dopamine hit, right? And so once you get that and you're giving people a reason, and now you're getting, your podcast experience, your brand launched, you're in front of other people, people resonated with you, all that great stuff. When you do that, you build a following. You've got to tell your following where what you're about, what's in it for them. Tell them what's in it for them. It's simple as that. And when you do this, now they know what comes up. But the thing is, just like anything, there are billions of people making content out there, all anchoring to get interest. So what's a piece of information that I really haven't dove too deep into, but I hear some content creators who literally have said, you know what? You've got to make 10 pieces of content every day, or you got to put out 10 pieces of content, which I kind of cringe at, because some people, that's a lot. That's like a full-time job. Yeah, you could create 10 pieces of content or remanufactured pieces of content and you can put it out there, but that doesn't mean that to your followers and subscribers, that's what they're going to keep coming back for. Proof in point, I love on YouTube Think Media. They have given a great format of how to create a great YouTube or even podcast experience based on and used on, they focus on the equipment and tips and tricks and methods, right? But the thing for me is that in Think Media, they have so many great creators who come on and offer you strategies, but you're going to be the one to have to sort out the strategy for your branding. And then you have to sort out the strategy for your marketing. See, one follows the other. Marketing always, it owes its diligence to your brand, your niche, your area, what you're here for. And if it can't do that, then guess what? You're wasting your time. You really are. So, you don't have to be the expert marketer. You can pay people to do this for you. You can pay people to help you formulate a strategy, but you've got to have a point why your social media is going to land on a mind and stay there and have them interested. If you don't have that and it doesn't ruminate or resonate with an internal trigger of why they're there, why they got to stay to consume, good luck, man. So, and because the name of the game is like actions and traction, right? Versus distraction. And Nir Eyal also talks about that in his book, Indistractable. He talks about how to stay focused on in a world, in a society where people have so many things to be interested in, right? So when you have so many places where you can be interested in, whether it be social media, a new hobby, a job interest, AI, I'm not going to talk smack on any of those things because they're all just tools. They are a place where you can invite people to be interested. Matter of fact, I have a colleague and friend in the audience. Hey, Austin, if you'd like to come up, I'll invite you up. But I'm social streaming on different platforms, TikTok, YouTube, X, and all those great places. So good to see you, man. Also, those who are watching me live on YouTube, say hello. Also on Facebook, say hello. Definitely love to see your engagement. Thank you, and I appreciate you. So, anyways, getting back to it, there are so many tips and tricks, but there is no trick to get you to be relatable. Okay. You're interesting, and what interests people in you is what you're presenting, what you're throwing down. You don't have to be the expert. You can be just the doer, or you can be the person that is just curious, right? It's very important that you know that you can spark curiosity. Oh, I never thought about that. I never thought about this thing. You know, I never knew I had an expertise or experience. I know people that are into gardening, as an example. I know people that are into gardening that when they go live, thousands of people tune in and they're just watching them plant or recommend how to do whatever. There is a guy that I watch on YouTube. I love it when he posts SB mowing. Shout out to him. Why? Because I'm interested in how to do my lawn better. He goes and offers people, you know, in his community, hey, maybe it's elderly people or abandoned properties and it's got overgrown grass. But the way the process he cleans up these properties, whether it's someone living there or not, it's like a strategy. And so what happened? There was a result. I got out of him. What I got out of him is how to cultivate my lawn care, my yard care, right? And yes, I did buy some tools, and yes, I did buy some things, but he taught me how to create a framework before you're not just gonna take a lawnmower and just mow your lawn. He just showed like, hey, edge, blow out, clean out, create your outline. Just like in social media, create your outline, create your form, and build in. Get your foundation, your framework, your blueprint, and fill in those actions. And when you do this, you know what? People get curious. Hey, man, you make it look so easy. Of course. You make it sound so easy. Of course. And here's how I did it. So, marketing is really telling people why they're there. Branding is what the experience is. So as you're figuring out your niche and you're figuring out your brand and what it represents, here's another key. You can create virtual handles, which some people, depends on who they are, works. Just like stage names, but don't let a stage name like mine is 72 the Architect, right? Well, my real name is Jason Barajas. I'm a real person. So if you are presenting a level of, excuse my language, but bullshito about what you represent, what your brand is, guess what's going to happen? People are also going to sort you out, right? So be real with who you are, what you present. No one's coming to hunt for your identity. Maybe some people are, depending on what you're saying, but no one's coming to hunt you for who you are. Be willing to learn all this process. So once you've gotten some experience, you've been interviewed on some podcasts, maybe you've been, you know, made some social media pieces, you've got to be relatable. Um, that can make a difference. It really can make a difference. And when you know that and you get that out there and more people resonate, hey, the one thing that helps your marketing is the way that people talk about you, good or bad. You're going to have haters and you're going to have lovers and the subscribers and followers. But remember, all those people need carefully crafted pieces to remind them why they hate you, love you, or just can't live without your experience. If you know that, it creates something that is very valuable. And I wrote these notes from this other creator that's going to make a difference. And what he basically said, let me see, social media strategies. He said, you're showing why you're there. You're giving them the value, right? Like, look at me. Hey, I'm happier. I'm living in an experience, yada, yada, yada. This is what I did. And here's 4 tips of how I got over being distracted. Right? It was very important once that took place. And when I got to where I needed to go, let's see. And I don't know why my thing is not working as well as it might. But anyways, once I got to exactly where I wanted to be, then I started doing exactly what I wanted to do. And people like getting behind that. Like, oh man, like I said, SB Mowing, he helped me become someone better at taking care of my lawn. What if there's people about fashion, right? Here's a big one, just as an example. How many men out there are not fashionably put together? There's a content creator that I watch in a couple different platforms, and this guy always dresses sharp. He always has a good attitude, has great confidence in his presentation. Why do I follow that? Well, I'm not the most fashionable savvy guy. So to get me there, I'm going to listen to his strategies, his brand, and whether he's selling a product or selling a course, how to put yourself together, it just only gives me value. And that's what I'm there for. Right. So it's a hard one to get over, but at the same time, it's worth it in the long run. So when we understand all that and you're willing to get over, you know, things, you're you're really getting to the place where you want to be, right? And that's really what it comes down to. Where do you want to be with all this? And and it's very important that you know what that definition for you is. So know that there's an experience that's worth sharing, that has value, that people have to keep coming back for. And when you have that, maybe it's casual conversations. Maybe you can do, like, for example, you go in a clubhouse, there's plenty of rooms and places where people talk about specific things, where it's politics, social media strategies, DIYs, whatever you want to have. And people have live talks. They fill in their time with that. So, it's very important that you know what you're filling your time with. But when you're getting brand exposure, who you relate to is very important. And here's my last tip of the day. So, as you're getting your networking experience in your branding, all that great stuff, once you're getting it in, Always remember to number a several part piece of advice. Number one, never take anything personal, right? Watch how you act with other people. They will ultimately, relate to you or not relate to you, and they will talk about you. This that could be good and bad publicity, but nonetheless, how you talk, but how you stay in control and in your lane. I know from experience, I've gotten out of control for myself in talking to people. Like sometimes I get really passionate. I care, right? Like I was hearing somebody just the other day talk about strategies for U.S. diplomacy and in the Navy. I'm like, dude, don't talk about the way to use the Navy when you've never served a day in the Navy and you don't have. You're just going off of what you think, right? Be careful when you say that. Why? Because I've served in the United States Navy. Not that I'm a naval expert, but to disperse those resources ain't so easy. So remember, don't get offended. Watch how you get triggered. See how you relate to people. Find common factors, common denominators that what brings people to you and you to them. And you create this interest. Once you do this, guess what's going to happen? People are going to keep coming back. All right. So after you do all that and you know that how understand the platforms of social media work, now you can start making content that brings people in and reminds them about why they should come back. So, which leads to my next piece of advice under that tier. Always keep it professional, even when you're being personal. Who did I learn that from? I learned that from Gordon Ramsay. He made a social media post that made so much more sense. This guy's known for passion, cursing out cooks and chefs on a line to be in his restaurant. But at the same time, he was being cruel and mean, but he danced on the fine line of being the professional. But he just used the average language to do that. And sometimes he was degrading. So then he crossed the lines. But people are like, oh man, I want to hear why is this guy acting like this in a restaurant? So when you look at not taking things personal from people, keep it professional even when you're personal, can set you apart. That could be one of the few factors that people relate to, right? So that's pretty much my discussion for today. And I'm going to see you all later. I'm going to continue live on my Clubhouse experience and talk to a few friends. But I hope you all have a great day. Hopefully, this is making a difference. Share and subscribe to any of my channels on YouTube. You can find me at 72 the Architect, all one word, or live on TikTok, Clubhouse. It's all the same, but it will be changing pretty soon to my name, just all Jason Barajas. That's where it's going down. That's what's going to happen. So I want to thank you all for coming out on the other streams. Y'all take care. Have a great one.